What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle. Today, we're going to be checking out a little game called Dust and Salt, which is like a narrative RPG with turn-based battles that's based on kind of a narrative overworld, I suppose. This is my first impressions of the game. I haven't had a chance to play it just yet, so you and I will be experiencing this together. Everybody join hands. Let's go ahead and play a new game. Here we go, and let's see where the game takes us. The trees rise like grim, angry giants frozen in the midst of a timeless dispute. Their naked branches reach like crooked arms for the gray autumn sky. The bleak silence is disturbed by approaching steps. A boy, no more than 10 years of age, wearing the clothes of wolf, fur, and a man, mightily shouldered and deep of chest with bare fur layered over his armor, both from the nameless people. They are you and your father. Your journey towards becoming a warrior is about to begin. That's what your father said earlier when he took you to the thick woods near the village. As you and your father advance in the forest, you come to the edge of a big trapping pit once used for hunting animals. You notice that on both sides of the pit, the woods are thick and there is a dense briar undergrowth. Your only way seems to be along the thin edge between the pit and the wall of trees and prickly shrubs. Your father reaches for your hand. I guess grasp it firmly? You grasp his hand firmly and he looks at you with a warm smile. The edge of the pit is very slippery. If you are not careful, you might fall down. On the other side of the pit, your father rams the blade of his axe into a tree. This, he points out, is a yew tree. You will make your first bow out of it. You reach for the axe. Not now, he says abruptly. First, I want to show you something else. Come, let's go. You leave the axe rammed into the tree trunk and follow him. See, that right there is called narrative foreshadowing. I bet you that axe is going to be important later on. It's Chekhov's gun, man. Once you learn about the mechanics of writing stories, it ruins stories for you, because then you're like, oh, he left the tree there and it did the camera pan to the axe on purpose. That's going to be important later on. Once you learn writing and stuff like that, it takes something away. Deeper into the woods, your father suddenly grabs you by the shoulder. You can't always rely on your eyes. Close them. Listen. What do you hear? You close your eyes only to be surrounded by darkness thicker than that in the forest. You cannot hear anything besides the pounding of your own heart, but then a deep, low, monotonous noise is coming from a thick bush under trees in front of you. A hidden animal? Your father seems pleased with the answer. He leads you further into the darkness, something in front of you runs off, grunting angrily. Boars. Your father shows you where the animals were hiding, under the thick bush where the darkness is almost complete. Sometimes your eyes will not tell the truth, he says, while touching the dead eyes of the bear, head adorning his helm. When you reach the end of the path, the view makes you gasp and your eyes go wide with awe. A broad meadow and a small lake are revealed in front of you, surrounded by high trees that are covered in thousands of yellow, red, and brown leaves. Although winter is coming, for some reason their branches are not naked yet. Look closer. Your father touches your arms. Your eyes are deceiving you. You squint and the wind blows and the leaves flap like countless small wings dreaming of first flight. It can't be. The leaves are actually butterflies and thousands of them. The king's butterfly travels each autumn from the north to the south, your father explains. Its children eat away whatever crops or plants have been left in the fields and vanish before the next day of winter, or the first day of winter. Why is it called the king's butterfly, you ask with curiosity. The big bear-covered man thinks for a moment and adds, because it was born with a crown on its wings. Your father frowns as he hears steps approaching the meadow from the other side and takes out his knife. A few moments later, soldiers appear out of the trees. They bear strange arms on their shields. One of them, bearing a red sun on his chest, steps forward and says, "We are here to collect the new tax from Murk, barbarian." "We've already paid our taxes. A cart full of our finest animal furs we sent to Murk a full moon ago. What do you want now?" "Not much," grins the soldier. "For starters, every family of the Nameless must give us their firstborn son. Murk needs a bigger army. Is that child yours?" Your father freezes. He hesitates for only a moment, but it's enough. "Take the child," says one of the soldiers pointing at you, and the rest draw their weapons. "Run," your father says as he pushes you to the side and plunges into the fight. His knife quickly cuts the throat of the soldier with the red sun. Blood gushing from the wound splatters on your father's face, and before the rest can act, the bear-shaped figure is amongst them, striking left and right with his giant fists like war hammers. Your father is one of the greatest warriors of your people, but armed with only a knife against so many opponents, he has no chance. Soon he is wounded heavily and falls to the ground. "He told me to run, so I'm going to run." You run for your life, as your father told you. Startled with the butterflies twitch their wings and flutter off. They fill the air with thousands of yellow, red, and brown colors covering your escape. Several arrows fly past you before you disappear into the woods. Back in the darkness under the trees, you run until you're completely exhausted. But even then, you still hear steps and shouting behind you. You must hide somewhere. You look around. This place looks unfamiliar. Cover myself with leaves? You hide and try not to make a noise. The thick carpet of rotting leaves is teeming with bugs and worms crawling under your clothes and on your face. After a few minutes, you hear a rough voice shouting to other soldiers. A heavily armed boot steps over your hand and nearly crushes it. You try to suppress a groan and lose 1 life point. Soon the boot lifts its weight. Luckily, you remain unnoticed. The footsteps of the men seem to disappear into the distance. You do not hear the soldiers anymore, so you come out of your concealment and run to the tree where your father left his axe. Just as you pull it out of the trunk, there's a shout behind your back. A soldier has seen you. You have to get to the other side of the trapping pit you and your father went past earlier. Run along. Let's run along the edge. You prepare to go around the pit and recall how carefully your father made it through earlier. Let's scamper along, watching our steps at the cost of our speed. You scamper along the edge and watch your steps. You're almost on the other side of the pit when you hear a scream and a loud thud. You turn around and see that a soldier has slipped and fallen off the edge, his body now crumpled in a twisted shape at the bottom. You escape your pursuers, and behind you, a dark, ominous smoke rises from the nameless forest where the village is. The soldiers of Murk do not leave any resistance unpunished. Later this day, you are ready, far away from your home, when you stumble upon the camp of a raiding party of lowbrows. Your people hate the lowbrows, and you have heard stories of how they pillaged your land. You sneak closer and see 2 of them guarding 3 captives. A huge one-eyed man with muscles that pop out like ship ropes from the countless efforts to free his tied-up arms. A smaller man with dark skin and bright clothes all covered up in dirt. And a woman as beautiful as you had ever seen before. One of the guards approaches her and starts whispering something in her ear. The other guard is sitting on the ground with his back turned to you. Smack that fool! Hit him with the axe! We go out gangster style. You step quickly behind the lowbrow's back and lift the axe. The blade cuts between the neck and the shoulder of the guard, who falls and grunts with pain for a few moments before losing consciousness. Hearing this, the other lowbrow turns around and sees you. Cut the ropes of the one-eyed man. You quickly cut the rope with which the hands of the huge one-eyed man are tied. He promptly takes care of the remaining lowbrow and frees the rest of the captives. See, I figured that was probably a good idea because I'm just a child, right? They said I was like 10 or 11 years old. We got the jump on the first guy, which is the only reason we took him out. But the second guy, 12-year-olds aren't that big, man. A 12-year-old versus like a 29, 31-year-old man who's done combat and captured people and stuff like that. I didn't see that going very well for me, so I decided to call in some aid. We had to send up a signal flare and be like, yo, come and help me. I need aid. After sneaking away from the lowbrow camp and running for as long as you can, you and the former captives stop for a brief rest. They tell you their names. The one-eyed giant is Ragnar from Northblaze. The dark-skinned man is Abbas from Outremer, and the woman only tells you her name, Naan. We owe you our lives and freedom, says Ragnar. Those lowbrows would have sold us as slaves. To repay our debt, I suggest we take you home to your parents. We will also give you some gold as a token of our gratitude. I don't have a home or parents. No home and no parents, you say quietly, and they watch you in silence. After a brief moment of consideration, you continue. If you really want to repay your debt, you can help me. My father was murdered and my home burned by soldiers from Murk. As you are my witness, I swear that I will dedicate my life to destroying Murk and its high lords, who brought this upon my home. If you say you owe me your lives and freedom, I urge you, pledge your lives to my service until we destroy that snake pit of a city, and I will consider your debt repaid. Silence is their only answer. What are the chances that 3 adults pledge their service to a boy? What were you thinking when you proposed this? You shake your head and walk away, ready to travel alone, when suddenly Naan says, "What's your name?" Without hesitation, you turn and reply, "Wayward, from the Nameless People." Okay, so click on any location flag on the map to move your hero to that location and continue your adventure. So there's the Ruins of the Sword Council over here. This is a very beautiful game. I like the art style, I really do. It looks good. It's got kind of like a Banner Saga feeling to it, is really kind of the atmosphere that I'm feeling. So that must be the big city that we got to wipe out. It's either that or that one right there. It's a Viking game, apparently, which I had no idea. I saw the picture and I saw the nasal helm, but I don't want to speak out of turn since it was my first impressions. Let's go ahead and we'll go to the Ruins of the Sword Council. You and your new friends find employment as guards with one of the southbound caravans crossing the Western Rim. One day, the caravan you guard stops at the Ruin of the Sword Council, a small staging post between Northblaze and Discord, which also doubles as a slave market. In front of you, there is a roughly hammered-together platform where slaves are auctioned for sale. If it hadn't been for you, we would have been there now, says Ragnar, pointing at the platform. You nod silently, and Ragnar pats you on the shoulder as if to express his gratitude once again. I'm going to wet my whistle in the pub over there, the big companion states. What should I do? Whatever you wish, Ragnar shrugs. Just don't forget to keep your axe where it is, on your back. The punishment for drawing your weapon here is whipping. Here at the ruins, the rich merchants who organize the slave markets and mercenary gatherings prefer to close deals without bloodshed. Their guards don't show mercy to those who break the rules. I promise I'll be careful, you say, and look away, wondering where you should go next. We can go to the inn or we can go to the slave market. Let's maybe go. So what are these up here? I can center on the player. We've got a checkpoint. We've got our adventure sheet. So we've got life, which is 9. We actually got wounded when that guy stepped on our hand. We've got glory. We've got our main hand axe. We've got something we can put in our offhand eventually. We've also got troops to think about. And I guess it gives us a description of the troops that we can bring along. Let's go to the slave market and kind of observe this travesty unfolding. You approach the crowd gathered around the slaves for sale. "Aye, nitwit," says a rough voice from behind you. You turn around and see 3 boys who appear to be older than you. They're holding their hands folded in front of their chests with looks of contempt on their faces. "The ruins nitwits pay a fee. Give us your money and you can stay. Don't, we'll beat the living daylights out of you. And then you'll still give us everything you've got," grins the one most massive in front of them. The 3 of them are standing in front of you, ready to pounce at any moment. "Forget that. You ain't taking my gold. I'm not getting mugged right now. I got an axe, son. Let's do this thing." You do not intend to give them your money. Assess our surroundings. You take a glimpse of your surroundings and notice the crowd and the wall that goes around the ruins. Look at the crowd. Behind you is a crowd that's gathered for the slave auction. Maybe you can hide in it? Let's look at the wall. Not far from the 3 attackers, you see a high wall that surrounds the ruins. If you can climb it and go down one of the trees growing on the other side of the wall, you can escape the 3 boys. Alright, so let's think over our options. You are anxiously considering your options when it dawns on you that you can threaten the boys with the axe on your back. Of course, you can always start a fight, but you really doubt you'll be able to defeat all 3 of them and get away without a good thrashing. Why not cry out Ragnar's name in the hopes that your huge friend hasn't gone too far yet and can still hear you? So we've got options. Climb the nearest wall, threaten with the axe, punch the nearest bully, hide in the crowd, or call to Ragnar for help. Let's hide in the crowd. You turn and hide in the crowd, quick as the lightning. You are arduously elbowing your way through the people gathered there who won't move out of the way just because some brat wants to pass. You can hear the shouts of your pursuers behind you as they have obviously decided to follow you into the crowd. Yeah, shout fire. Fire! There's a fire, you shout, flailing your hands in panic. Fire? Are the tents burning? The tents? Are they on fire? The tents are burning! It doesn't take long for a panic to spread through the crowd, and soon there are people running everywhere, allowing you to escape easily. Your pursuers are lost in the frantic masses. I always wanted to start a riot/public panic, and now I've accomplished that dream. This is what actualization looks like, everybody. Welcome to the Nerd Castle. You just made my bucket list come true. We've managed to create public chaos and entropy. Let's go to Ragnar's training, I guess. In the following years, Ragnar puts you through exhausting training and exercises which help you develop your body... which help you develop your body's abilities to an enviable level. Your strength and speed improve with every passing day. We've got a new skill, agility. Okay. Where does that go? What does agility do? Maybe it allows me to use special options when I go to things out here. So as far as I can tell, it's basically like a choose-your-own-adventure novel, except with like beautiful artwork going on. And I'm okay with that, as long as there's some kind of visual representation. Like, I don't like the choose-your-own-adventure novel games that aren't really games. They've just got text on the screen and you click stuff. But if it's got like backing and it's got like a UI and everything like that, I'm willing to overlook it and shift my expectations a little bit. To the next day. One day Ragnar calls you to him. I will teach you to fight so well that you will defeat every opponent you face. I'll show you how to swing 2 weapons at the same time. You want to keep your father's axe by any means. Ragnar gives it a careful look and lets you keep it. He insists, however, that you choose one more of the several weapons that he carries with him. From now on, you will fight with your father's axe as well as one of the weapons listed below. Consider them carefully before making your choice. There's a warhammer. Well, I didn't want to choose the warhammer. I thought it was going to give me more description when I clicked on them. Damn it, can I go back? Never mind. The warhammer's good enough. I like warhammers. It's not that I don't like warhammers. In fact, that's my favorite fantasy weapon, medieval weapon, so it's good enough. Years pass slower than the steps of a feeble old man, and you cannot wait to finish your training. For the most part, your small companies spend their time eking out a living as caravan guards, a job that gives you indispensable experience and knowledge of the places and inhabitants of the Sinlands. Yet after all these years, you still haven't settled on a decisive course of action that would allow you to accomplish your goal, killing the 7 High Lords and destroying the city of Murk. Nevertheless, you are sure that this day will surely come. Up to now, it's mainly been Ragnar training you, teaching you combat skills and tactics. You've discussed many different topics with Abbas and Naan, but you've never really spared the time to study the disciplines they can teach you. One day, at the Salt Caravan, a trading wagon train that travels between the barbarian settlements in the north and the city of Weep in the south, arrives in a small town at the foot of the northern mountains. Having found a temporary respite from guard duty, Abbas invites you to go for a walk outside the town walls. You both walk in silence along the path leading to the mountain slope, the snow creaking underneath your feet. Abbas stops next to a large rock whose surface is jagged and distorted into odd shapes. "How do you think this happened?" he asks you, and you think about it. Nature? "I don't think it's man-made. I don't believe in dwarves, so the only thing that could have done it is nature." Abbas smiles. "Perfect logic. But what natural force could have cracked this rock?" You squint your eyes and examine the rock. Indeed, you can see cracks as if there was a giant inside struggling to get out, causing the rock to crack with mighty arms. What's your answer? "Frozen water inside the rock." "How did you know?" Abbas asks, his face shining with enthusiasm. "That was not an easy question. This is indeed the reason. When water gets into the small fissures of the rock's surface and freezes, it expands, causing the rocks to crack." You shrug your shoulders. "It seems to be the logical answer, didn't it?" Well, there you go. I only knew that because I studied geology, so there it is. Yay! All of those years and all that debt from college finally paid off. Hooray for me! Abbas's training. From this day on, Abbas takes up your training. The knowledge he possesses is enormous, and the speed at which you absorb everything you hear and read, see is remarkable. Abbas is extremely pleased with your progress. We gain the skill of science. Nice. And so I guess we'll take the Salt Caravan back down to the south. I would like it if it was programmed to follow the roads. I think that's one little overlook for the game, that I don't think it would be too hard to make waypoints that follow the roads and make the actual character doll itself follow the roads around as it travels. It's one of those little immersion things that I think is a really good idea because it helps draw the player into the fact that the character is traveling. He's not just like teleporting in between locations. He's walking down roads. But it's one of those minor things that, you know, I wouldn't dock points or anything for. It's just an observation. One cold night, while standing watch over the Salt Caravan, you and Naan are sitting by the campfire, quietly talking with one another. Ragnar and Abbas are long asleep, tired from the long travel. You hear the snoring of the other passengers, and occasionally one of the donkeys neighs quietly in its sleep. The soothing lap of waves against the shore comes to you, and the air is full of the salty scent of the sea. "Tell me more about Murk," you say to Naan. She stares at the sparks from the fire dancing in the night air, and then she answers you. "What do you want to know?" "Why are the seven so ruthless?" "Because the souls of mankind are darker than the blackest night. In time, the seven High Lords grew swollen with pride over their power deriving from the divine gifts that once pulled the people out of the darkness. They became proud and unyielding, cruel, without mercy in their hearts. They stopped leaving their towers, except to meet other rulers or each other. They could not stand the mortal eyes of the commoners to defile their divine visages. What is more, they also grew suspicious of one another, and so each of them had his own soldiers apart from the city watch and the army of Murk." "Why would the city need seven rulers?" "Because they've got a lot of stuff to measure, duh." Today, Murk is a city run by seven High Lords who have no trust in one another, but by the power of the old laws and traditions they are forced to decide the fate of the city together. Power has been transmitted by bloodline for centuries, and no one has been able to cease that. "And the Dark Regiments?" "The seven turned their greedy eyes to their neighboring lands and waged wars on them. Even after imposing their power on the surrounding tribes and peoples, they wanted more. They began taking small children from the conquered lands and training them to serve Murk. Thus the Dark Regiments were created. The armies of Murk attacked lands further and further from their own, and the power of the city continued to grow." "Why don't they have names?" "The real names of the High Lords have fallen into oblivion. The rulers of Murk have only the names the people have chosen for them." She smiles. "The crowns have been passed on from father to son within seven houses, and the people have always obeyed the orders coming from the seven towers." The branches in the fire crackle, throwing a warm swarm of sparks. "Murk has become a city governed by hard-hearted rulers far off from their subjects. It's one of the most powerful, but also one of the most hated cities in the West Rim, and its strength reaches even some of the North lands. Every nation, every tribe, and every ruler in those parts of the Sinlands fear it and are full of hate for it." Silence falls around the campfire. You can read sadness in Naan's face, even though you do not understand why. Since she continues to be silent, you utter, "Dust and ashes will be the only thing to remain of that city." If all the hatred that is accumulated against Murk is unleashed, dust and ashes will be the only thing to remain of that city. Naan rubs her eyes, tired of staring at the campfire, and looks at you through the dancing flames. And rightly so. For all the blood we've shed, I can say that we have earned nothing more than dust and ashes. How should I conquer the mighty city? First, you have to take lead of your own people. You have to win the trust of the nameless. You squint your eyes, anticipating that this will not be an easy task. The biggest problem for you is that nothing suggests the current leader, Radaman, would abandon or lose his position. Why do you speak as if you were part of Murk? Naan sighs and responds, I myself was born there. I left my birthplace when I was old enough to realize what the city was within its walls and felt revolted by my own place. Tell me more about you, Naan. I've been wandering the Sinland since I was 16. At the age of 18, I was already a mercenary guarding caravans, and that's how I met Ragnar and Abbas and later you. Naan briefly tells the story of her childhood and the years that followed. How can I unite the nations? If you can unite the nameless people under your lead, you could negotiate with surrounding cities and nations for a union against Murk. The influence of Murk grows threatening, and I think that the surrounding peoples would support any undertaking that might weaken the power of the Seven. You are silent as you consider all the things that you and Naan have talked about. The last few years of your short life have made you extremely mature for your age. Your Corvals would not be able to carry the burden that you have shouldered, but you are confident that you will do well. How do you know I'm not lying to you, Naan says suddenly, and you look at her shocked. After all, I was born in Murk, and you want to raze it to the ground. How do you know that I didn't lie when I swore to help you seek revenge? In fact, how do you know I won't kill you right now? If you actually wanted to kill me, why would you wait till now? It's true. If I really wanted to protect Murk, I would have killed you when we first met. Always look for the motives behind a person's actions. Is that person good to you? Why do they do it? What benefits might this bring them? Are they attacking you? Are they using swords or words? And again, why are they doing that? How could they benefit from it? And soon your conversation comes to a halt. That's actually a very important skill in life. I don't think that gets taught to kids enough, but as you get further into life and you have business undertakings and dealings and things of that nature, it's very true. You very much have to start figuring out the hustle. And just because you have a hustle doesn't mean everybody else doesn't have a hustle, and that your hustles are not perpendicular to one another. You know, if you find out that there's a bit of a normality between your motives and their motives, something's going to come to a head right there, and they're going to be trying to solve it just like you should be trying to figure out how to solve it. That's a very real thing, and nowadays, because society's a little bit softer and a little bit kinder, we don't think about it. But it doesn't mean there's not manipulators and people out there trying to take things that you have. Naan's training. From the next day on, Naan takes upon herself to be a part of your training. She teaches you to recognize human emotions, interpret people's behavior, and restrain your own feelings. You learn everything she teaches you easily, and she is proud of your fast progress. We got insight. Okay. So now we have insight, we have science, and we have agility, which have been taught to us by all of our mentors. Up to the dusty caravan we go. Years pass, and the boy who once fled the nameless forest is now a strong, tall young man. As a mercenary guards caravans, you have had the chance to travel almost all over the Sinlands. You were 18. More than 10 years have passed since the soldiers of the Murk killed your father. With every passing winter, you feel your strength and determination to fulfill your oath grow stronger. Throughout this time, you get more and more attached to your three mentors, who are now not only your advisors, but your friends. Ragnar, Naan, and Abbas have tried to pass on to you almost every bit of knowledge and skill they possess. Your mastery of the martial arts is impressive. Your education in science is no worse than any of that young nobleman. Even your most experienced diplomats could envy your ability to discern the true nature of any situation and act accordingly. Vainglory, I suppose, is our next stop then. After your most recent tour with the Dusty Caravan, which traverses the lands between Northblaze and Discord, you are now traveling back to the ruins of the Sword Council, where you hope for a wealthy merchant or caravan driver to be offering work for 4 experienced mercenaries. You stop at Vainglory, a medium-sized city where people earn their livelihood mostly by selling their famous apple wine. In one of the city taverns, officially named Fill Me Up, you and Ragnar raise your not thoroughly wiped pints. I thought it said pants right there for a second. I was like, why were our pants down? But nope, I was just reading poorly. Your sense, you can never be too careful. You can never be too careful in these situations. Your senses are flooded with the bitter taste of cider, which leaves an aftertaste of mold in your mouth. The innkeeper brings you a jug, and Abbas starts drinking straight from it. Naan has gone for a walk around the city. Suddenly, Naan bursts into the tavern and sits at your table. We have to go, now, she says breathless from the run here. Where to? Naan shakes her head. To the nameless forest. I met a man from your people, Wayward. The old leader, Radaman, is dead. Your hand freezes, holding the pint at your lips. We don't have any time to lose, you say. Abbas puts down the jug reluctantly and wipes his mouth and says, "It's a pity for the good wine, but you're right. This is an incredible opportunity to take the lead of the Nameless people and move one step closer to fulfilling your oath. You leave Vainglory and head for the Nameless Forest." Off we go. You arrive in your native village a couple of days later, just in time for the clansmoot. Despite the years of wandering, you feel your home calling to you. At that moment, you realize how much you have missed it. A burning feeling rears up inside of you because you know that your childhood, your family, and your chance for a normal life were taken away by Murk. And that is where we will leave it. We've got to look for the clansmoot, but maybe next time. This game is called Dust and Salt. It's an RPG narrative-based text game where you make decisions and see what happens. If you guys liked what you saw here, I realize it's a little outside the ordinary for what I cover on the channel, but I really loved the art style. I thought it was really beautiful, and I wanted to play it for a little bit. And so here it is. If you wanted to get the game for yourself and experience what it has to offer, you can do that down below in the description. If you wanted to support me, all you got to do is hit that like button. And sure enough, that helps keep the channel flowing, puts gas in the tank. I will see you all later. Thank you for stopping on in. My name is Splattercat. I show off indie games every single day at the internet and every single day on Twitch TV/Splattercat Gaming. I encourage you to join me there if you wanted to hang out live. And I got nothing else for you. Hi, do everybody. Bye-bye.